Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Starting in 1901 as a 3-mile-long trolley line, the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad eventually expanded to connect South Bend to Chicago. Today it is the only functioning electric interurban in the United States. How about that for a history lesson? We're joined today by Cynthia Ogorek, public historian and author of 3 books detailing the uniqueness of our region. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, it's pretty rare that I have an author on.
Really?
So this is, yeah. Oh. So, I usually have people who are out doing the things rather than kind of recording the history.
Okay.
So, why are you so interested in the history piece of this region?
Because I think I'm a born historian. I enjoy the research, and I really want to tell people about what they have going for them here in the region, and they don't seem to realize that it's here.
How do you define the region? Because you live in Calumet City, right? Mm-hmm. So they actually let you cross the border today?
Like I said before, don't get me started. I had my visa stamped, as we Illinois
Indiana,
people say.
Right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. The region is defined kind of by the watershed of the Calumet River. And about 22 years ago, we started something called the Calumet Heritage Partnership, which is a bi-state umbrella organization. And at that point, we started working on a definition because a lot of us had grown up here, but we had no idea where we were, in a sense.
Do you even see that state line? Is that even a boundary for you? I mean,
it is, because it's a political thing. And I've done a book on the Calumet River, and even the Army Corps of Engineers puts a stop on their projects at that state line. If they're working in Indiana, that's one thing. If they're working in Illinois, that's another. They don't ever seem to work right across the line.
But that Calumet River snakes up over into Illinois quite a ways.
It starts in LaPorte County and comes across LaPorte, Porter, Lake, and into Cook County, all the way to about Blue Island. And then it comes back, and right around Hegewisch, it splits. We have the Grand Calumet that goes off into the Gary area, and then the Calumet River, which goes up into South Chicago, and then also the mouth is in Lake Michigan.
It really is like a snake. I mean, it really kind of does curl around.
Yes, and it's a meandering kind of stream. It tends to just keep going until it hits a dune, and then it goes around it. And it only drops about 45 feet between the headwaters at LaPorte, which are like Holmesville and Otis, Indiana. And across Porter County, the drop is only about 45 feet.
So pretty flat,
and by the time it gets out here west, yes, it's very slow.
So why was this called the Calumet region? Where'd that come from?
Because of the river, as far as I know. That's all I can
Who named the river?
Well, the Indians, the tribal people who were here had a name for it, but then the French came in and for some reason decided Calumet. The word Calumet seemed to approximate what the native peoples were calling it. So
what do the native people call it?
Oh my goodness.
Is it hard to pronounce?
Yes, and there are about 6 different versions of it, that I don't keep up here.
Well, that's interesting because, again, if you think back probably 300, 400, 500 years or whenever the Native Americans were here, I guess from wherever they lived, it was called that piece of water for them. And it's not like they all coordinated that, right?
You mean
the name?
No. Whoever was living here probably had a slightly different version of the name for it. Yeah.
How does somebody get into writing books? I mean, how do you just one day wake up and go, I think I'm going to write a book?
I think most kids have an idea that they want to do that when they're little. I know I wanted to write when I was very young, and I can remember being in 5th grade and really enjoying history. And I said to myself, I'm going to write a history someday.
So you decided in 5th grade you were going to be a writer.
But it took me 40 years before I got around to doing it. I had to go out and do first and learn about the world, and also learn how to write. I was a journalist for a while, too.
You were?
Oh, yeah.
So
I was a stringer for the Northwest Indiana Times for many years. People may remember me as Cook of the Week when it was still the Hammond Times. Okay. And did some work for the Chicago Sun-Times. I did a series of articles on histories of neighborhoods.
So what does it mean to be Cook of the Week? What's that?
Oh, cook of the week?
Yeah.
I used to go out and interview people in their homes, and they would cook for me. And I'd bring a photographer along, and he would photograph the food, and I would
Wait a
interview
second, I think
the
I'd
lady.
like that job.
You
just
want
go-
that job?
so-
Go talk to the, go talk to
So
the
you just go and
Times.
they fix your food,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
you talk to them,
Yeah.
and you write a
Right.
piece about it.
And then they needed to fill more space, so they had me doing dessert of the week. Until I ran out of dessert people, and I had to do it myself.
So what was the most interesting person you ever interviewed in terms of cook of the week?
Oh my gosh.
Was
Well,
there an
maybe,
interesting one?
I don't remember this person's name. Oh, there were two people. And again, I don't remember names. This has been a while. But one was a chef who started a restaurant in Homewood, Illinois. And he was trying to promote odd foods. So he was importing fiddlehead ferns from Canada. And that
Okay.
was on the menu. Needless to say, the restaurant didn't last too long in this area. The other one was a lady, I think she was over here in Indiana, and she actually made squid. And it
Wow.
was the first time I'd ever tasted squid. Although
So did you like it?
Yeah, it was fine. It was very good. And my mother had said that her mother made it when they were little, but she never tried it.
So these three books, you have three books, and you've written them about the South Shore Line, another one about the Lincoln Highway, and the third is about the Calumet River. So kind of three major transportation
Yeah,
pieces.
I'm becoming known as the queen of region transportation.
There we go. We'll have to find out who the king is at some point. So when you talk about the Lincoln Highway, I mean, how far do you kind of go with what you're looking at?
Well, for this book, I stayed close to home. It's about a 90-mile run, and it starts at the Ideal section, which is roughly the border of Dyer and Cherville, and it runs all the way around on Route 30 and up into Route 31 through the Fox Valley up to Geneva, Illinois. And the reason I chose that was because it seemed to me that that is the very first urban bypass in the nation's history of highways. And that was 1913. And they did that on purpose. Elsewhere on the highway, they wanted to run through the main streets of town because that's where the paved roads were.
I never think about that as, we always never thought about that as an urban bypass because we always talk about it was an old Indian trail. Everybody says, oh, the Lincoln Highway was part of an old Indian
Well,
trail.
it does run on the old Sauk Trail, yeah. But when they designated the Lincoln Highway, this was something different. This was a more urban idea, let's call it, and they were trying to avoid downtown Chicago because 1913, you would not believe the horrendous traffic jams in Chicago, plus the fact that there were 22 railroad lines running in and out of town. So they were trying to avoid all of that and keep it out in the boondocks.
In the boondocks.
Yeah,
so what's one of the most interesting stories about the Lincoln Highway?
Oh,
I know there's probably lots
Oh,
of them.
yes,
What's
there
an
are.
interesting one?
oh, golly. The one that's staying in my head is much more recent than 1913. Over in Illinois, we formed an Illinois Lincoln Highway Coalition, and that group got together to get our stretch of the highway designated as a scenic byway. And one of the IDOT employees who was on the committee said, "Well, it's never going to happen, but if it does, I will walk the length of the highway in Illinois." And son of a gun, we did it, and he got out with his duct tape and taped up his shoes and his feet, and he started at the Indiana border and walked all the way across to the Mississippi River. And that was just one of the hikers. I mean, a lot of people have used this road as a hiking path, shall we say, not just for cars and trucks.
So he was a man of his word.
He was,
So
yeah.
obviously, if it was started in 1913, Lincoln never was able to be on the Lincoln Highway, right? So how did they pick Lincoln?
Very good question. If you
I assume this is Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yes,
So,
Abraham. What happened in 2009?
this is a quiz, right?
That's your quiz.
a
We
bicentennial
celebrated
something?
his 200th birthday. Okay, so when you get to 1913, you're still dealing with people who were around during the Civil War. Some of these people may have even met or seen Lincoln, and his 100th anniversary birthday was in 1909. So in Congress, they were trying to decide on an appropriate memorial to Lincoln, and the Lincoln Highway people said, well, why don't we'll name this highway for him, and that'll be a 3,000-mile monument. but they could not convince Congress to do that. They wanted statues, and the Lincoln Highway people wanted a road, but it was originally called the Coast to Coast Rock Highway, which is not very sexy.
That is not very sexy. So was the Lincoln Memorial in D.C. built about that same time?
I think so,
then?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were, you know how Congress is, they were dithering over what to do. I don't know exactly when that was built.
Dithering's a good word, I think.
But the Lincoln Highway Association was organized in 1913. The highway was dedicated in October of 1913, and it is, you have to say, it's the longest monument to the president in the nation. And if you take all the generations of this road, it's closer to 5,000 miles long.
Wow.
Because the alignments have changed.
So good old Honest Abe got a road and a memorial.
And a
so
statue.
he got more than he bargained for, I guess. So then you've also written about the South Shore, which has been around for 100 years
Yep,
also.
over.
And that train line holds a lot of history from South Bend all the way to Chicago. A lot of people still don't know that. It goes that whole way. So how about an interesting story about the South Shore rail line?
Well, if you don't mind me kind of going back on Lincoln, the South Shore is an Indiana corporation, and they did start in Indiana, but there was no point in running it from Hammond to South Bend. Not too many people are interested in that. It had to go into Chicago. And in order to do that, the South Shore Company at the time, which was the Lakeshore, actually, came up with a deal with the Illinois Central. And the Illinois Central built the line from about 115th Street to the Indiana border, which is the route you go through Hegewisch on today. It was called the Kensington and Eastern. The reason I'm giving you the background is that once you make that turn at about 124th or 115th, you're on the old Illinois Central corridor, which was also the corridor of the Michigan Central Railroad, which carried Lincoln's funeral train into Chicago.
Okay.
So once you get into that end of Chicago and down into the loop, you're riding the same route as the Lincoln funeral train.
So I think before I ask it, anybody ever did anything dramatic like jump off the train or something like that? You said a number of people have been hit by the train. Was intentional or unintentional? I guess both, right?
I think mostly unintentional. People just, there is a reason why people keep calling for regulations at train crossings, because people just are not aware that a train can kill them. And they will try to do all kinds of silly things. Like, I can remember in Hegewisch being at the station, and there was a path through the prairie, from the station, through the prairie, over about 6 or 8 sets of railroad tracks to Burnham, because commuters did not want to walk all the way to Burnham Avenue and go around, which I can understand. That's a long walk.
And then a lot of them like to sprint in front of the trains,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Or they trip, or they're not paying attention, and that's what has happened.
Wow. So, and the Calumet River then is the other piece that you've written about. We're not stealing too much of the thunder from the books, right?
No.
Okay.
No. They still need to read them to get the whole education part.
To get the whole story, right?
Yes.
Because if I took everything out of here, you'd have to shoot me or something, right?
Yeah.
So you're making me want to read all these, I think, now, because
Okay.
I like the history piece. So
Okay.
the Calumet River again. Something interesting about that you kind of talked about how it meanders around, but what's something people don't know about the Calumet River?
Well, I think what I've been kind of preaching lately, I've been working on a history of Hegewisch, and it turns out that on the far west side of Hegewisch, you have Hegewisch Marsh, and then you have the O'Brien Lock and Dam. I think a lot of people, in fact myself, until a few years ago, did not realize that in the middle of that lock, the St. Lawrence Seaway ends. So you can take a boat all the way from the Atlantic Ocean through Canada, through the Great Lakes, and you get all the way to Hegewisch, and then you change over to a different kind of rules of navigation to go on the river system, and then continue on your way to the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow. So I think a lot of people around here just kind of look and go, okay, that's the Calumet River. It's kind of this polluted thing that nobody really pays much attention to anymore. Is that kind of a bad rap?
I think so. I think part of it is the both states, the road crews, when they replace a bridge, They don't put a nice bridge up. They put Jersey barriers on either side of the roadbed, and you can't even see the water. And it's ugly. So what do you expect?
What's a Jersey barrier?
Jersey barrier are those big concrete fences that they put in, you know, when they're working on roads. To keep you from running into the road crews, they'll put up those concrete barriers.
Right.
Well, they use a form of those to make bridges these days. In the 1920s, when they first put up bridges, they were making them out of concrete, but they had holes in them. There were patterns, so they look like balustrades or railings instead of just walls. And that's why nobody realizes we have a nice river.
Well, why is this kind of history important? I mean, it's important to people like you who just love it, right? And I'm actually one of those people who really enjoys history too. But to the average person, why does this matter?
Well, I think it's just nice to know where you come from. And the people, I do a lot of public speaking on all these topics and others. And when I tell people that where they come from is important in the scheme of things nationally, if not internationally, they're stunned. Because we don't seem to get that knowledge here. I think we tend to come from people who are very shy, and we kind of put ourselves down, and the weather is not nice here, and we don't have palm trees and fancy beaches and resorts, so what good are we?
So we kind of sell ourselves short.
Yeah, we do.
And here's an opportunity to have some pride about some things. It is kind of interesting in this area how many people don't really know about the history, and therefore it's like there's no bragging rights, you know?
Right, yeah,
if there's something that you tell us we should be able to brag about, what is it around
Well,
here?
the train, for one thing, and the Lincoln Highway is still going strong throughout Indiana and in Illinois. They thought that I-80 was the bypass for the bypass, and then I always like this story. I don't know, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the I-80, the interstate highway system was celebrating a 50th birthday. So they had another convoy starting on the West Coast, and they drove I-80 all the way across the country. Well, they got to the Chicago region, and I-80 was shut down for construction. So guess what? They had to use the Lincoln Highway to get through here.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I love the concept of this being the longest monument to a president.
yeah,
you know, just
yeah.
I don't think people think about
No.
something like that because they're like, yeah, what's the big deal with a rail line and you know these kind of things that they put behind. But these have been really important to our region. I mean, again, this goes back to where the kind of the crossroads of America, and here are the three major pieces of it, right? Rail, water, and highway.
And vehicle, yeah.
So what else, why else should we care that those things are there and be more proud of them?
Golly, I think that's about it. It's just, we are important to the nation. Without this area, everything would stop at the mountain ranges. And,
That's true.
You know, we get put down all the time because we're the flyover states. Well, we're also the bringing hauling the produce and the cattle and the steel and cars and automobiles. Everything comes through here. Without us, the economy would be probably half of what it is, if not worse.
Or, as you said, it's not sexy, it's not glitzy, you know, some of these things, but they're real important to our history here. Real important. So, do you have a favorite of one of these books?
Oh, no. I did each one as the opportunity came about, and I enjoyed doing all of them.
So if somebody has a dream about being a writer, what advice would you give to them about
Just write. Just keep doing it. And the hard part for writers to understand is that it is a business. If you're going to be more than just a journal writer and shove it in the drawer at the end of the day, if you really want to be published, you have to look at it as a business, and you have to promote yourself and be willing to do a lot of things in order to get to your particular goal.
But I think that advice about just starting to write is important because back to that 5th grade Cynthia, that was where it kind of started for you.
Yeah, I think so.
And so forth.
More or less.
So these books are available in most of the bookstores around here? I mean, how do they get a hold of one of these?
I don't know what bookstores
Amazon,
are left,
right?
but Amazon does carry them. You can go directly to the publisher, or if you want a autographed copy, you can contact me through my website, and I'd be happy to
And your
help you out.
website is?
www.centerofknownhistory.com.
Center of Known History. That's interesting. But if they look up your name, I bet they can find
Yeah,
it too,
yeah,
Cynthia Ogorek.
Google Cynthia Ogorek.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's important to know. So you call yourself a public historian. What does that really mean?
In my mind, that means that I will do just about anything except teach on a regular basis.
Does that mean you're trying to stay away from teaching?
Yes, I don't. I like lecturing. I enjoy talking to people. Some of the best parts of my lecture programs are the question and answer afterwards, because we really get it going. But I do not want to grade papers or discipline students or put up with bored people. Just,
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So was there a question you were hoping that I wouldn't ask you today?
yeah, like when did Columbus discover America or something?
It's that basic stuff that kind of throws you off.
Yeah, I tell people that's why I write books. All the details are in the book so that I don't have to carry it in my head anymore.
That's a good way to put it. Well, thanks for being on the show,
You're welcome.
and more importantly, thanks for documenting this piece of history for us.
My pleasure.
And I'm hoping that some of the people who watch the show will pick up a copy of this and start reading these. I think I'm going to be doing one of those. So.
Okay, very good.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Do you think people know how to write anymore? I'm not talking about journalists, authors, or researchers who engage in the art of writing as a profession or practice it regularly. My focus is on the everyday person. Do they know how to commit ideas, thoughts, and information to paper or computer? I do not count truncated texting, passionate postings in Facebook, troubled tweets, or enlightening emails as real writing. Those communications are full of abbreviations, acronyms, and shorthand. I don't know about you, but I often have to search the internet to find out what the other person means. All of those cute little shortcuts and smiley faces does not contribute to good communication or effective writing. Have we lost the practice of writing due to a culture of, let me tell you what I think, how I feel, or what I'm doing right now in a few words or less? There is value in those bits and bytes, but can those people connect a pattern of reasoning or collection of information and convey meaning or promote understanding to a reader? I have often been appalled at the writing level of college graduates and students in graduate school. There is an art to writing, and it still has great value in our world. I strongly encourage all of us to practice writing as a discipline for structuring and refining our thoughts. I equally support reading books, articles, and research as a way to strengthen our ability to convey complex ideas and provide needed information. As it takes some muscle coordination to create art, whether chiseling a statue, holding a paintbrush, fingering an instrument, or dancing on stage, it takes that similar muscular exertion to practice the art of writing. Besides holding the pen or stroking the keyboard, we have to exercise that muscle we call the brain. Thanks for watching our show. Did you learn something today? We always welcome your reactions and thoughts. You can send them to our email address, which is listed on your screen. Have you checked out our website? It is full of exciting features. Specifically, you can watch past Lakeshore Focus episodes. Just go to www.lakeshorepublictelemedia.org, click on the TV, scroll down till you see my picture, and one more click and you can view a list of past shows. Tell your friends and family about this show and how you watch Lakeshore Public Television. Make sure you join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.